Alright, then let's get started, I guess. Alright, can we get a roll call, please?
Ash Shake,
Here.
Sarah Cornelli,
Here.
Chelsea Campbell, absent, Brian O'Connor, absent, Lisa Cunningham,
Here.
Bob Broadus,
Here.
Adam Hain, Candace Whitehouse,
Here.
and Benjamin Pell.
Here.
Mr. Commissioner, you have a quorum.
Thank you,
Chairman, sorry, excuse me,
Commissioner.
Chairman.
That's what my label says. Anyone have any issues with the agenda as written? It's very detailed. Alright, then public comment. Do we have public comment?
Yeah, so my name is Stacy Johnson. I live in Arapahoe Ridge, and I'm also a member of the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. And I'm not here tonight on behalf of the League of Women Voters, but more or less as a resident of Erie. Celeste Landry called me up Friday evening and said, hey, your charter commission is kind of dealing with a couple of issues of districts versus at large, and then even and odd years. And so I've been trying to take the last few days to kind of catch up on those issues, and Celeste's call kind of alerted me to, like, yeah, you're kind of falling asleep on the wheel here as being engaged public member on these issues. So I just and I know you've have done a lot of deliberation and have kind of got a good charter going as to those issues, but if there's any remaining time to kind of provide some input on those, I'm here now to kind of give my take on those. I'm by no means a scholar of representation and the dynamics of minority and majority rule and that type of thing. I think, and the little I do know, I think I'm not keen on the aspect of a district component to a town council, and the reason being is at the end of the day, an ordinance that would be passed or legislation that would be passed by that town council would take kind of a majority vote. And when I don't have access to the majority of those members to the town council, that kind of rubs me in the wrong way. And I so realize, and living in Arapahoe Ridge, I mean, we're kind of on an outpost aspect in the composition landscape of Erie, and I do appreciate the aspect of perhaps knocking on someone's door and say, hey, you know, the town is kind of ignoring us on this, can you look into that? And those aspects of having a little more nearby representation. And I guess maybe some of my comments are more question-based too. I did listen into the video meeting of your March 2nd meeting, which you kind of came to that decision for districts and then doing even years. I'm not sure how you got to the point of, one curious question I have is, did you look at like a hybrid approach?
You have 20 seconds left.
And so I would, and before this 20 seconds lapse off, I'll try to submit some written comments through a form. And I encourage you to kind of reach out to the voter service team of the League of Women Voters on proportional voting. So, but I'll try to fill out everything else I wanted to say through that form.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to read my little script about public comment. I guess, do we have any more public comment before I read the script? Okay, sorry.
Last time you gave a chance at the end too, is that?
That was a specific, that was the dedicated public comment meeting. That's why we did it. We do it that way. Here, it's more of a working meeting, but we give the opportunity for public comment.
Is there anything you wanted to say?
So yeah, if if you're going to, let me read my script so I can just verify.
Trying to decide.
Okay, so it's time for public comment portion of the meeting. Please remember, public comment is not interactive question and answer form, but rather time for you to state your comments on a particular item. You'll be asked to state your full name and city of residence for the record, and it's limited to 3 minutes per person, and you'll be given a 20-second warning. At 3 minutes, the chair will ask you to wrap up your final sentence, and you may resume your participation or end your participation of the meeting at that time. So,
My name is Celeste Landry and I'm from Boulder, and I guess the main thing I wanna say is, if the goal is to have representation of every community in Erie, then proportional representation is the way to go, and electing more people at one time rather than fewer is the way to go too, so I guess I wanted to say, what are the goals, and then work toward those goals. Thanks.
all right. Let's see. Any more public comment, or are we? No, okay. Then let's continue through the review and discussion. I know we had a good meeting over the weekend with the trustees. I found out a lot more about how much work goes into all of it. And yeah, some of the elements, especially from Trustee Bear, talking about the elements of having to be a working mother as well in that, or a non-working mother, and then Sarah, Trustee Laughlin, as a working mother in that position. It's not really made out well for for people like that to run and serve. So, I mean, I took a lot of notes, and I've kind of tried to go through a little bit on my own to figure out what those kind of mean in terms of decisions we've made and where there's opportunity to go back and reassess some of those decisions. I don't know. Anyone else have anything they wanted to bring up that's immediately on top of their head?
I took notes about their hours worked
Yes.
and how much they get paid. And the lowest number we got was 20 hours a month. And that was from Trustee Savage, which he gets paid $300 a month, and that's $15 an hour.
Minimum wage, hooray.
But I expect he works more.
So the Justin Brooks said he worked up to 100 hours a month at $500 a month is down at $5 an hour. So if we think that's fair, then we don't raise their pay.
I don't think anybody thinks that's fair.
Or, yeah,
I think that this is a struggle because what the struggle is do we put hard numbers into the charter, right? That's, I think, what the biggest struggle is, and I think that with so many members missing today, we shouldn't be deciding today. Especially with several of those members feeling strongly about one way or another. But I don't think anybody's disagreeing that they're paid far too low. So that's, am I wrong on that?
No.
I feel like I can speak for everybody on that. Okay. So that's for sure, something has to change there. What it is that we do or don't do, I think is still up for discussion. But I think some ideas were thrown out that were interesting, and I think that we should talk about them as a group. Again, I don't know if we want to do that today with so many people missing and people that weren't there, unfortunately, are also not here today. Darn spring break. So that would be for everybody else to discuss as well, but that was my thought on that.
I mean, we have to be cognizant of what we had already expected, which is it would be very difficult for the council themselves, board of trustees, to do it politically.
Yeah.
And if we feel strongly, which I know I do, we should do something.
Yeah.
I tend to like the idea that Brian came up with of putting it as an amendment and letting the town decide, but having it not be part of the core charter vote, but a secondary vote.
That's where I'm at too, I think right now, that's where I'm leaning. I do wanna discuss other options
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, the mayor brought up an option that I thought was really interesting, that we should explore more. Tying it to the average.
The AMI, Yes,
And
that
so
was
that
interesting.
I thought was certainly interesting, that we should explore further if people want to. But yeah, right now, that's kind of where I stand too, where I'm like, maybe we should just put it out to people, but don't codify it.
So I did the math on that. I looked up our town's latest, like the 2022 town summary document. Median income for Erie is $125,353. So
Median income is $400,000.
100.
125.
400 would be.
That's why I was
I know,
shocked.
right?
No, 125.
Okay.
So
Even 125 is
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
pretty
it's like
substantial.
60% over Denver is what the document says. It's like 75 is Denver, so we're at 125.
It's also more highly educated than most areas.
Percentage wise and all of that. So like if we hit something like 0.75% of the median income, that would be $940 a month.
What percent did you say?
0.75,
Okay,
so 0.75%.
just for a baseline to let you know, Habitat for Humanity's baseline is 60 to 80% of AMI is what they shoot for, to be able to qualify for Habitat House.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant to work there. I'm so
No, to
confused.
qualify
Okay,
for
yeah, I get
house.
where you're at now.
Yeah.
The affordable housing that's proposed for Cheeseman is 80 to 120 of AMI.
Okay. So yeah, as far as like, yeah, we have options for council pay and yeah, the decision left to be made is how we put that in the charter or not and put it as an immediate amendment vote, that sort of thing.
Sarah, did you have a chance to watch?
I didn't watch, I asked Lisa for notes, but I didn't have a chance to watch because I just got back from vacation.
But do you know what we're talking about at least?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I tried to take good notes.
I trust that your notes were phenomenal, I just wanna make sure that you're in the loop while we're discussing.
I didn't think it was fair. First, actually, like I owe you an apology. I didn't mean to put you on the spot Saturday asking
on
you.
the spot, but thank you.
That wasn't my intention at all. And I felt kind of bad after I left and I was like, oh man, that was kind of a sucky move. And I then went out and I posted the question to Old Town Erie, to the Facebook page, and I was like, hey, we're very, very, very high level discussing this, and how would you feel if the board of trustees pay were tied to AMI? I kind of explained it. And then I went, for example, I pulled 2020 numbers for Lafayette. In 2020, they paid their mayor a little over $1,000, and the median household income was almost 86,000. So I did the math, if I did it correctly, and the mayor is getting 0.012% of the AMI in 2020 in Lafayette. And in 2020, our median income was 124,000, almost 124,500. And our population was almost exactly 800 people fewer.
What, did you get any responses on your Facebook post?
Yes, actually I did. I had one person who was like, I'm kind of neutral to it. And I had two people that I spent the entire weekend trying to convince because they have preconceived ideas. And I say this generally because based upon the comments they were giving, it indicated to me that they had not taken the time to actually read the charter. There was a lot of assumptions being made about what the charter's in, and that we're how much money are you raising? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, there's not. He's like, I want to know what's in the charter for money, and I'm like, nothing. I'm like, so I said, just please go read the charter, and then you'll understand exactly what it is I'm trying to say. So I did have So I had two people who were vehemently no, but they thought that the Board of Trustees should be not paid anything. They think it should be strictly volunteer, and that by paying them, then they are then gonna run wild and go crazy, and they're just gonna go, anyway. So two people for that, and then I had one resident who said that he actually really supported the idea, and that, Erie, he understands that Erie has grown and we need to pay people appropriately for their time that they're spending, and he felt that tying it to a marker like AMI was a really good marker. And so I had like 4 people total. So 2 were vehemently against it, but again, they were against it, I feel like, because they don't really understand.
So I think that's exactly our concern, like Brian and I's concern, is that we're gonna put this out there, and then the responsibility then falls on the voters to actually read it.
These 2 people, I know, I don't anticipate them, I already know they are not in favor of the work we're doing to begin with. And so I think there's some bias already playing into that.
Sure.
So the people who already come into this with a bias, not everybody does, but the people who are already coming into this in bias, and I'll flat out tell you, my husband's one of them. Coming into this with a bias, we are going to have a very difficult time, and we have to realize that we may not be able to win their vote. And that's something we have to, there's something I have to be okay with.
No, it's something,
I'm
I think
kind
it's something
of
we
worried.
have to do. I think that's something we need to talk about at some point, is the publicity. We started talking about it, but I think it's a critical element.
I think that actually ties in quite nicely with what the emails that you and Ben sent out, which I wanted to ask, but of course Hillary's not here. Are you allowed to reply all?
Yeah,
I thought that was
I was
open
getting
meeting was, and
I
it's
was
like,
debating. Well,
Reply all when?
just in discussions today in regards to the
but, yeah, I
You're not, no.
stop doing that.
That's the answer is no. You can send out, but you all should not reply to him.
okay.
Yes.
He can send something to you, or one of you can send something to everyone.
I almost did that and should have.
We can respond to him as long as it's just him.
Just to him.
Yes.
And keep them on copy.
I always just, usually when something like that, I put home rule on the VCC line.
That's beside the point. I was like, I'm gonna ask Hillary because I just wasn't sure since it wasn't like super critical topics, but then I was like, we better check.
We'll read the email for public.
Yeah.
And it was, well, we are gonna go over it tonight,
Yeah.
so, and okay, anyway, I'm not gonna try to justify it.
But anyways, Candace,
But-
since you asked me, I am super on the fence about whether or not to put it in the charter. I'm with you and Brian there. Also, I do feel, somebody had mentioned our education level is pretty high in the town, and I think people will do their due diligence research before just completely shutting it down, because we include pay in there. I think if we do it, I really do like the idea of basing it off the AMI. I think something needs to be done. You guys were able to sit down and have a study session with the trustees, and they basically told you they didn't wanna touch it.
Yeah.
So if we do feel passionately about it, and our reasoning behind it is to attract people to actually want to do it, then we need to make it happen.
Yeah.
Is where I'm at.
I think it's not even so much at this point just about attracting people who wanna do it. I mean, my goodness, Mayor Brooks was saying sometimes he can spend upwards of, what did he say, 60 to 100 hours
Well,
a
and like
month?
1 in the morning, I'm sorry, but like when we
Yeah.
leave here at 10, I'm like, oh, tomorrow's gonna be so rough. Like
But
I
the one
can't
thing-
even.
The thing that stuck out to me the most, that really made me feel like I want to do something. I still don't know how or what. But the one thing that stuck out to me was when Mayor Pro Tem Laughlin said that they get the feedback from the surrounding groups that, hey, Erie's finally starting to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck me. Erie is not this little one horse, literally we had one stoplight when I moved here. I'm not exaggerating, there was one. And so we're not this one horse, one stoplight town anymore. We really are a suburb. And so we now have a board of trustees who are really acting and being involved to represent Erie, and I think that that is important, and I feel like it's the right thing to do to acknowledge and
Compensate?
yes, thank you, I was gonna say accommodate, that's not the right word.
Well, also that though, with the childcare stipend,
Yeah.
that struck me because I feel that every week. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Who's gonna watch, like my husband right now is out of state, so it's like, who's gonna watch
Yeah.
my kids tonight? So, yeah.
And I wonder too, if situations like that may be preventing from people who want to run but can't because we are working parents.
Well-
Or you're a single parent, or if I was in Kansas situation, I absolutely would not be able to do this. We don't have family that was that close by. My mom worked nights, my husband worked nights. I would not have been able to do this.
Can we defer this conversation of where you are right now till we go over talking about putting in a intent section? Cause I cover some of that in the intent section.
Like the synopsis or
Right, or
like
synopsis,
the
whatever you
summary.
wanna call it.
I honestly have not had a chance to read
I know.
any of those that you guys sent.
They're not
I'm
long.
sorry.
They're not long,
That's kind of good too, cause that was one of my concerns is
right, they're,
if there's a synopsis, people will only read that. If they even read that.
Yeah.
And then they'll vote based on the synopsis, so it needs to be accurate, it needs to be concise.
Yeah, and I haven't read these yet, so I wanna
Yeah, we can take a quick 5-minute
about that,
pause
but
and read it.
my thoughts are, I'm not sure if it should be in the charter or if this should be packaged up nicely from us and delivered to the public as our marketing almost.
I think, okay, my personal belief is it should be in the charter, and the reason for that is 5 years from now, people aren't gonna read the marketing material, they'll be reading the charter.
That's true.
And having the intent of what we're trying to do in the charter, I feel is very worthwhile.
That's kind of my thought too, and Louisville, instead of having a preamble, did the synopsis, which I think that's fine too.
But anyway, I didn't mean to
Oh, so
sidetrack
nice.
the discussion further, but
I'm just saying,
Yeah, I know.
like, it's already in one charter that we always make fun of, because we reference it so much. So,
So where
do-
would you say that in this intentions that you have drafted,
Right.
where would you say things like a childcare stipend or
we could make longer what I have written about why that what we're trying to do is broaden the pool.
yeah, you wouldn't say what is available. I think if we wanted to do a childcare stipend, effectively we'd have a compensation line that says other compensation may be provided.
Right.
We should probably put a cap on it.
Right.
Unless I
not-
run.
Ah,
Just kidding.
But something like shall not exceed monthly pay as a stipend or something like that.
Or like 50% or something.
Yeah,
something.
yeah, something like, so you know the maximum amount everyone could potentially do that. And then we don't wanna say there's a childcare stipend,
Right.
but it would be part of the package, like whatever the cost
Community
to give the community center or other things, I don't know what other perks are available, but
The ability to buy into the town's healthcare.
yeah.
Right.
So whatever, that counts as part of that.
Yeah.
But then in the intent, you just say we want to open the candidate pool by providing these incentives.
Yes.
And you don't really say what incentives can be provided, you just say, that's what I'm thinking. We don't wanna lay out anything, I think that's also been our focus. We don't wanna say, this is what you're doing, unless we do.
No.
No,
For this one,
no.
well, I mean, like other parts, we say, this is what we wanna do, so this is what you're doing.
like, and my heart goes out for like the childcare stipend and stuff, but it is supposed to be a volunteer position, and that pay is supposed to help make them be able to show up, right?
Yeah.
So if we increase the pay, I mean, that can go for childcare.
Right, and that's one of the things that Brian was saying too. He's like, if we're increasing the pay, then do we deduct benefits. So, yeah, this is, again, there's a lot to unpack here and kind of go through and discuss, and I don't know, we necessarily wanna do that without
Yeah.
several members.
I think it's worth doing because
Yes.
we only have a month left to finish and we can catch them up next week.
Yeah, oh, we can totally discuss it,
I think
yeah.
we should draft,
I'm
I
all
mean,
about that.
personally, I think adding to 309, which is the compensation, it's probably worth putting something in there about benefits or in number 1 where we talk about shall by ordinance prescribe, and that's one of the weirdest phrasings we have in the document, but I think we can put another sentence in, this may include benefits up to X% or whatever, as guidance.
How are the additional benefits for the trustees laid out currently? They're in an ordinance?
Yeah.
So like the whole thing about where they can buy into the town at, the town's health insurance at full price, that's all ordinance.
Which again means they're giving themselves logically a raise if they were gonna do it, which is why it makes more sense to me to put in the charter, or something that allows for it in the charter.
Wait, I have a question. When you say, I just wanna make sure I'm understanding terminology. So they pay like the employee portion of the town, or the town
No, they pay the
pays?
full
They pay the
price.
full
It's like
price.
Cobra.
Okay,
not
so
really
if
a
they're
benefit
paying,
at
if it's
all.
like Cobra, then I don't see how that's giving themselves a raise.
No, if we had childcare, for example.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is if we're going to say they are allowed to do things like childcare, we should make it, again, give guidance to them so they have something to rely back on rather than saying they're giving themselves a raise by allowing them to collect childcare.
I'm of the opinion that it's one or the other. We either increase their pay or we provide additional benefits.
Right, I agree,
I
but
don't know that we need to do both, but that did hit home for me. I was like, yep, I feel that. I feel
Well,
that every day, but
come on.
And based on what I saw, most of our trustees currently, they are truly treating this as like a volunteer. They kind of have to because they're not getting paid a
Because they
squat,
get paid
but anyways, I really feel like even if I were to ever run, which I don't think I'd ever be crazy enough to do that, but not with my current schedule right now, too many young kids. I feel like any income they get should ease the burden of having to go to these meetings, having to figure things out. And that's about it. It shouldn't be it should make it so there is no burden to serve.
I would do it, word it a little differently.
Oh, yeah,
No.
I'm definitely not.
What I'm saying is, what I was gonna say is, and this is the way I worded the other thing, is the purpose is to increase and equalize the playing field.
100%, yeah.
Because right now, only people who can afford it only people can afford it. Whether you're retired or not, I don't think matters. You still have to be able to afford the expense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that eliminates a significant percentage of people from the pool. And so I think if we word it that way, hopefully we'll be able to convince some of the people who are against things as to why it makes sense to do this. Anyway.
I have another question. Do trustees submit for mileage, are they eligible for mileage reimbursements? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's one of our lines and other, I don't forget
It's
the phrasing.
3.
That
But
is
from
correct.
what I've heard, it's such a pain that most of them don't even bother.
I'm sorry, I remember please that I'm still learning, this is my learning experience for town, for local government, so I don't know how much runs like a business versus how much. So does the town pay the IRS rate or do they pay okay.
So if you look, it's in 309, item 3, if you happen to be there. That doesn't matter, so bona fide expenses
Okay.
are
Thanks.
allowable.
As they should be. I've just heard that it's more of a pain to even file the paperwork than it's worth. So most of them just don't.
And I've done some of that.
So the process of getting a mileage reimbursement is cumbersome.
Well,
It's
it's
not
just,
that it covers them, I just don't know that it's
Worth it.
worth it for the amount of dollars that you would,
it's like charity miles on your taxes.
yeah.
You're supposed to be keeping a log.
Right.
It shows your mileage before and after the trip and all this stuff. Is that worth it? To me, it's not.
We would require them to fill out the same form we do, which is basically the date, where you went, purpose, and how far. And then the form has a formula in it and it tabulates the total. And you submit it through one of my staff and we sign off on it and you get a check.
How often does it take them out of Erie?
And it's
That I don't know, I don't see, many of them don't do it.
Right.
I mean, it's been quite a while.
It's like 60 cents a mile, so if you're going to Boulder, you're getting reimbursed, like $5?
Yeah, I get that.
So,
But didn't Justin say he was driving to Denver?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people
So
drive
depending
all
on how
over.
Erie
yeah,
and
it
Denver
can
go.
add up. It's
Yeah.
it's not zero, but sometimes it's not worth dealing with paperwork for $5.
No, but again, what I'm trying to get is there's all these. The impression that I got from Saturday is that the mayor pro tem, and the trustees use their personal vehicles, their personal time. Justin and Brandon and Mayor Brooks, Mayor Sawich, I think said it, and I'm sorry, trustee.
It's okay, you're fine.
And trustee Bell, I think, all mentioned that they are either working flex time or using their personal paid time off, like their vacation time, in order to fulfill their duties for here. And so what's kind of, rattling around up here in the cobwebs is there a way to make a package that says, hey, we recognize and we value what you're doing. So to help offset some of these one-off expenses or these things you're having to do here.
I mean, Boulder pays per meeting up to a maximum of 52 meetings. So that's a package of that sort. I don't know if that accomplishes what you're looking at, but that's in the
I
charter.
think, so again, this comes down to like the responsibility, right? The option is there. It's their responsibility to fill out the form and submit it to get their $2.50.
And the other part is.
I don't know if it's our responsibility to make sure that, if that's too complicated for you, we're gonna make it easier. You know what I mean? Not that it's complicated,
No, I'm
but
just-
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other point is, do we wanna count things like childcare in the list of bona fide expenses? Or do we wanna add something separate? I think traditionally that would be something separate.
Yeah, and if we wanted to add it, that would be a Hillary question, is bona fide expenses, it sounds like a legal term.
It-
And I wonder if, without having to
don't-
write it in the charter, would you be able to include,
I don't expect childcare as
Neither do I.
an expense. I know I had to, at work, we do a lot of government contracts and that's not
Yeah,
it's not a reimbursable thing on expense reports.
but on the other hand, childcare costs are tax deductible.
Anyway, maybe you're right about asking Hillary.
Yeah, I
I
think
wonder
it's
if
a
we're
legal
spending too
question.
much time on this right now. I don't know.
One concern I have with putting it as an immediate amendment is, an example, we put amendments to do road work and they get turned down. And then everyone complains about roads. So if we put it as an amendment, we're changing the way our government works and we're hoping that they'll be compensated. I think if we're gonna change the way it works, then we should compensate them.
Do you think the changes in the way it's working or having them work is significant as for the amount of work?
I think what we learned on Saturday was the amount of work is changing.
Yeah,
The amount of work is changing just by nature of our town.
because we're 30,000 people
Yeah,
Right.
and they're being paid like it's a town of
2,000.
200 to a few thousand.
Yeah.
So kind of catching us up with the times, correcting the fact that we are the largest statutory town in Colorado and making our candidate pool large enough for the things we're proposing.
And I mean, part of it is representation too, right? You want candidates who represent your townspeople and not the ones who represent the richest 5% of your townspeople. Who can
So
afford
nobody
to.
from your neighborhood.
Yeah, but no, knowing the AMI of Erie, I'm not sure it's that high as far as but it's still significant, so never mind, I shouldn't have said anything. Alright,
Okay, I know we went through that a lot, but like, was there any other topics that jumped out? I guess, did anyone have a chance to look at like the Windsor Charter for the redistricting terms? I hadn't.
I can pull it up.
Yeah.
It's actually, do I even have it right here? Oh, I'll just read it right now.
Thank you.
Let me find it. Maybe I'll read it right now.
and I did have one thing I wanted to bring up.
I do remember, while I'm looking for it, that it was a relatively short, it wasn't even like a long paragraph, it was a few sentences.
And that was for like the transition, right?
Oh, is this under well, what were we talking about?
I almost just said the same.
Yeah,
thing.
cause I think
I thought
I
we were
was reading
talking
through my,
about redistricting.
Special
Yeah.
districts, is that what it's
But this
under?
is, prior continuation of present elected officials is Windsor Charter 17.3. Present board members and mayor in office on the date of this charter becomes effective, so that would be certified date, shall continue to serve and carry out the functions, powers, and duties of their offices until their successors assume the duties of their offices. And they shall in all respects be subject to provisions of this charter within the term limits applying to those terms served prior to the adoption of this charter. So it doesn't really spell out if the terms end in this section.
It also didn't talk about districts and having more people because they're current members than there are districts, but I thought we took care of that by saying districts don't come into play until the next election. So we're really only talking about the two people.
right, and that was the concern, is cause if they're extending and districts come into play immediately for that following election, how do we assign,
You're in essence
Those
at
people
large for,
yeah, do we make them
Do we
at large?
shorten their terms or do we add them into
Or
a
do
transitory
we draw our
position?
own district lines and make sure that they're in separate ones? I mean,
again, that there's only two. I think it will. We can say current,
Yeah, I think it makes it easier
Members.
because we have to.
My biggest problem with that is they were elected at large.
right?
They weren't elected by their district. We shouldn't treat them like they're representing a district that they live in. Because they weren't elected by their district. They were elected by the town of Erie.
No, but what I was gonna
So-
say is that if a person on the council who was elected at large, that district would not fill their seat until
The next.
that other election. The only other alternative, it won't work.
Are you?
The only other alternative is to elect everybody at once, and I know Malcolm has a legitimate concern about that.
A few of the other trustees did as well.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and Malcolm sent something that was pretty informational.
6 months.
I want to address the public comment that they felt like they would have less representation because they could only talk to the person, talk to the, I think once you're elected by your district, all the council members still need to listen to all of Erie, right? I
Yes.
mean, does that,
I think
they
that's.
can't just talk to the council members in their district.
correct,
That
but
was
they can
my
only be
reaction.
recalled by their district.
Well, not currently. I think we also have that comment that brought that up. I think the way it's written right now is there could be, or they need the signatures for the entire town. So they're being treated at large, which
No,
I think we need to.
I don't think that's
I
not
thought
the way I
that-
read.
We may not have put it in there, but I thought
That's
the
not the
plan
way-
was like
yeah.
of the it's a percentage of the amount of voters,
Yes, I agree with that.
which would be
Yeah.
specific to that district.
But when I read the charter, I didn't,
Right, I agree,
I
so
didn't think.
No,
so we need to put that on the go back
I
list,
think
is
we
what
need
you're
to
telling me
confirm.
this.
Okay, cause I read the charter again, excuse me, when it responded. And
Oh yeah, you did respond a couple of times.
and I thought,
So we received, 5 comments at least, I guess over the weekend.
Seven,
I'm
Most
excited about
it was
eight.
seven.
most were from the.
Which I'm excited about.
Yeah, and then we got one standalone, which was the,
That was
We were talking recall.
after
Yeah.
after I responded to her.
we're all over the place right now.
We are.
Yeah, we really are. Clearly, we
Way to go,
need,
team.
we need a check.
I'm,
No, cause what it said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you all, I knew I had read it on Saturday about the transition to districts in the Windsor one, just so you can look back at it. It's actually 3.4E, article, yeah.
They didn't put it in their transitional
It's under
provisions.
town board,
Classic
under,
term limits
yeah,
or term.
under term limits. And then transition to districts.
Why does the one I'm looking at not have a chapter 3?
Art-
It goes 1, 2, 4.
Article 3,
Article 3,
town board.
Right, let me just scroll through.
it's the, yeah. Actually, sorry, yeah, 3, yeah, 3. Oh, it's 3-1, sorry, not 4. My little cursor over here is on 4, but I'm on the other half of the screen on 3.1, I apologize. 3.1E.
Transition to districts, a districting commission shall be formed. The districting commission shall consist of 5 members. Members of the commission. Am I reading that? I'm not reading that right.
Yeah, you're reading it. Members of the districting commission must be registered electors of the town. No member of the town board or employee of the town shall be a member of the districting commission.
Well, this was about, to transition to districts, F. The first following creation of districts shall be held to elect 3 members to 4-year terms. And such town board members shall be from 3 of this, they have 6 districts, okay? It's not terribly relevant. Town board members for the 3 remaining districts shall be chosen at the 2010 election for 10-year terms, and I think this was,
10-year term?
sorry, for 4-year terms. I'm all
They're
over the
dedicated.
place, cause it says 2010 election, but
Yeah.
I think this was approved.
But the trouble,
Oh, it says no town board member presently serving on the town shall have his term shortened as a result of section 3.1 amended by voters
Yeah.
November 7, 2007.
Oh, during the transition period, any appointments to fill vacancies shall be for the geographic or at-large position held by the vacating town board member.
Why did they put this in?
so that implies, that would be a problem for us. Given our current terms, with 4 up the first time and 2 up the second, that would make things difficult to go into 3 districts.
No, cause sorry, go ahead.
I did research this and I couldn't find any other Colorado charter that had any transition provisions that were directly applicable. For some reason, I'm losing my voice. But I did come up with some language and I can send it to you now if you
Oh,
like. I'm sorry it's
please.
coming so late, but
That's all right.
I think it's understandable. We work a lot.
so I just sent it to you. And I think this would work and address the different considerations. So let me pull it up what I just sent to you and
So you were looking at the left side where it didn't have an Article 3?
Yes, I found it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's,
Oh.
over here it goes 1, 2, 4.
Well, you gotta read the home rule charter because the
Yeah,
chapters are the
It's
code.
weird how
I
that
had to go
happens.
in and like change my Google search, but
Yeah.
I got there.
You know, it's here, it's just,
And then it's
you're
Article
right, I
3.
know.
Yeah,
It's just the way it's laid out in their thing. It is the code, not just the charter.
well, that's how most of these Muni code
Yeah.
places are, they have both.
Yep.
Unless they give you a PDF only of the charter, like Louisville.
So in what I sent you, the key language is in paragraph 5. If the creation of council districts is provided by Article 3.02, which that's the section you've drafted that splits it into splits the town into 3 different districts. If that results in the two trustees, now council members, whose terms shall be extended until 2026, residing in the same district, then to restore the staggered positions, you just use those provisions that one of the positions is elected to a 4-year term and one is elected to a 2-year term, based on the highest number of votes.
Right,
And you're talking about, that would be the 2026 election, because both of them would be up.
Right, but we may have a case. No, we wouldn't, because there's only 2 not up.
Yeah.
That's why it makes it
That's what,
easier.
yeah, that's what I was saying the other
Yeah.
day, yeah.
And
The
if-
fact that,
And if the creation of districts results in them not being in the same district, it's not a problem, because their position, one position in that district would be 4-year term in the 2024 election, and then their term would be up in 2026.
right, and it turns out, my understanding is where they live, it's pretty unlikely they would be in the same district.
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
opposite sides of town.
I kind of want to throw out there too, I know we're kind of going all over the place tonight,
We are.
but I do want to throw out there too, it was brought up again in public comment that, the odd years are better, and it always pulls at my heartstrings, because I get it, I get the arguments, but we looked at the statistical data of voter turnout on even years as opposed to odd years, and it just,
And the other issue
it was
is,
so,
the other issue is the extension of terms,
Yeah.
relates into it.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of the 2.
yeah. Well, and I'm not really too concerned, I mean, if I firmly believed odd years were what was best for Erie, which I started out this journey feeling that way.
I did too.
However, I also ran to be on a home rule charter and it turned into a partisan crap immediately. It doesn't matter what year it is or what the subject matter is. It's always, we're always aim to not be partisan like that. But it doesn't matter the year, the voter turnout, the statistic there is just, it's staggering.
It was something like 80 some odd percent versus 40. It's
Well, and I think too, we have to take into consideration the poll that we sent out. That was hugely different in the amount of votes for even versus odd. I know, but Ben.
I didn't think that was that question a big difference? I thought that question was pretty
It
split.
was like 60-40 in
Yeah.
the fake poll.
Yeah, but
Somebody voted 25 times on.
okay.
I just wanna say, actually, before I forget, thank you, Malcolm, for doing this spreadsheet. I live in spreadsheets, and I was gonna actually ask somebody to do something like this for me, so I could see the visual. So you were my hero for the day for doing this, because this is so helpful for me as a visual person
Well,
to
it's
see
not
it
much
broken
better.
out like
I
this.
didn't even know there was one. I just had to scroll down the line.
Yeah.
I love
Look
spreadsheets.
at that.
I do spreadsheets in my sleep.
I'm a spreadsheet person myself.
Yeah.
So what we were talking about, the recall question, so if you go to 11.11.5, the wording does say that it would be 25%, a recall would require signatures of 25% of the entire vote cast in the last preceding regular municipal election for all candidates for the office to be recalled, occupied by the incumbent to be recalled.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
saying.
it's basically whoever voted for that office in that, and it says pursuant to the incumbent's district, specific to the incumbent's district if possible. So for a person,
Agreed.
a candidate in a district, it requires 25% of the people who voted in the last election for
That.
all candidates in that district
Right.
specifically, and they have to come from that district.
Yes,
So it's like the whole town can't recall one.
and that was my response back
Yeah.
to Dory.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, I read that 11.5,
You read
and
it?
I think I skipped, it's
Yeah, the
easy,
break,
it's
at the
very
break.
easy to miss.
Yes,
Yeah, cause if you read just the first part before the page break, it,
Right.
you miss the part where it says the specific to the candidate.
Right.
Okay,
alright, so. Are we ready for my other issue or not yet? I'm not sure where we are at this point.
Just
we're
send it.
jumping around. I mean, the topic for today was more along the lines of reviewing what we talked about on Saturday. Like
Okay.
Candace said, we don't wanna make any actual hefty decisions, just kind of discuss what we have to continue, because we do have a month left.
My comment was not about Saturday.
Anyone else had anything for Saturday?
One comment on Saturday, I'll just bring it up because it was brought up, is compensation for other boards, and I am against that.
So am I.
I am too.
I think it
I forget
right-
the context.
right for possible corruption and
Yeah.
shenanigans, or,
Especially since the board gets to decide who's on there.
so I just wanted to, I think it's noble and I think it's dangerous.
Well, and as is, didn't somebody on the board get accused of like going for the town councils for money for their own benefit or something like that?
I thought it wasn't a board member, but it doesn't matter.
How many how many towns are you aware of where commission and board members are paid?
Not many or any. Boulder may provide some compensation.
Just
No.
food.
Okay.
And I think a bus pass.
Hey, in Boulder, that's gold.
And here
Wasn't there,
is-
like, they're allowed to submit for bona fide expenses? I thought I read that
No,
somewhere in
I don't know
here.
about that, but I mean, each board does have a budget for things, like clothes, if it's appropriate. So you can get like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt from the board. So everyone looks like at meetings where you're there. You can say, I'll go to the person in the green shirt or whatever. But other than that,
Yeah,
there's really none.
I just wanted
So I
to,
think a budget is fine, I think personal compensation, we get going down a
if we did
bumpy
that,
road.
it'd be like, here's the number, it shall not exceed.
Well,
I
and
wouldn't-
And I
also-
don't think we should do it.
I don't think we should
And
do it.
also, we're concerned about our charter being voted down by increasing
Right.
people's pay that clearly deserve an increase. So if we start throwing money out to people, they're gonna just do it down.
And candidly, there's conflict of interest for 3 of the counselors here, or commissioners. Because 3 of
I'm
us
not using my
are,
conflict of interest properly then.
3 of us are chairs of boards, so.
And the chair should get the most.
The chair should pay everyone else.
So are we in agreement that that's?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
Well,
that's.
We can
yeah.
double check with the other folks once they're back, but it
They're
seems
voted
like
out,
that's.
doesn't matter.
Cause I mean, if it's money that's
They
gonna
feel
be for
strongly
Level
about
stuff,
it,
I'm
and hear
joking.
their arguments.
And then vote them, no.
we always keep saying we need to keep this as simple as possible, because overall, most of the decisions we've made in this charter are only going to benefit Erie, period. So to get hung up on things like that and not having it pass.
I think it's a non-starter, personally, as someone who would be impacted by it.
Like,
In the positive, I'd be impacted, but I'm against it.
right. Like even districts though, like there was public comment, they were upset, they wanted 4 districts instead of 3, and I was just kind of like, well, 3 districts is better representation than what you have right now.
Right, and
I mean, cause how many are in the same neighborhood right now? Trustees, don't we have like 3?
There's like 3 of them who live within like 500 yards of each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah,
There's 2 in each of 2 or 3, or 2, there's 2 in each of 2 neighborhoods.
I mean, on this commission alone, 3 of us live in Vista Point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But anyway, okay,
I wanna say, I think that so far the work that we've done has been good work, and I think that we've discussed a lot, we've researched a lot, we're not making these decisions, you know, just because we feel like that sounds good. There's been a lot of research and deliberation and things like that have gone into this, and so I feel good sticking with where we're at and what we've done so far. And I can appreciate all of the comments, but I personally feel like the decisions that we've already made have been good ones.
I mean, that was the point of our March 2nd meeting too, that was our decision.
Cause a lot of things are dependent on that.
Like everything.
so,
Like all the things we keep dancing around tonight.
Yeah.
so are we finished with Saturday's meeting?
There was one more thing that some of the trustees brought up was additional like disqualifying factors for candidates for office. Like the breach of fiduciary or public trust.
Yes.
Cause that is technically not a disqualifying.
Oh, that's not,
At the
you
state
can
level.
still be a voter.
You can still be a voter, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should put that in.
But if you've already broken fiduciary trust, are you really to be trusted with, $140 million
What
town
is,
budget?
Actually, no.
so what is breaking fiduciary trust? Is that a conviction in a court? Or how is that established?
That's a good question.
I
And
would
I think
say
that's what we'll
I would
do.
say conviction in court,
Yeah.
cause then you're guilty,
Yeah.
right? If you've been convicted, you're by law guilty.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we have on the financial stuff, like convicted of bribery and
Right, so I think,
embezzlement. Those are pretty clear, because those
and
are
I think
convictions.
I think the suggestion was to add the breach of fiduciary or public trust to
Yes.
those, like conviction of
Okay,
these.
Yes.
yeah,
So who's responsible for running those background checks and making sure that people aren't running that have
Town clerk office is
Does the town not do that?
We do not do background checks.
but even, because right now, we could have a trustee who can't vote potentially, and then there's no
You have to be a
background check.
registered voter, we check voter registration,
So
we
that's.
verify
that's-
that, but that
okay.
is all, we do not run background checks on candidates.
Would that be,
Well, we have a way for people to raise concerns.
Didn't the application we fill out ask if we were convicted of any crimes? Or
But
am I
this is
making that
different.
up?
Where's special?
Actually, I don't remember.
I don't remember that.
I could be making
I
that
would have had to say yes.
up.
Just joking.
That's a
I
good
don't
question.
remember that, but I'm thinking in the instance that somebody could just lie on that
Well,
anyways,
yeah,
right, by checking a box. They could
Because
just
the
lie.
thing that we have elsewhere, like one of the things we put in for there being an enforcement mechanism for breach of the code of ethics and conduct as well as stipulations of this charter. So if anyone discovers, hey, this trustee has a conviction for X crime that's supposed to disqualify them, they'd be able to submit that to the town prosecutor. Prosecutor would investigate, if found true, would bring it up to the town manager or to the other trustees, and
It's sort of,
basically the way the charter is written, they're immediately,
Are,
it's like the state representative who was found to not live in the district she ran for.
are criminal records public record? Like, can you pull somebody's criminal record?
Sometimes.
Okay.
yeah, it depends.
I would say the way this town has investigative abilities, I'm sure that somebody somewhere would find something.
Well, that's just it too. I mean, what is it against running background checks on candidates? Why have people jump through all the hoops and everything that you just listed when we could have just figured that out by running a background check?
I mean, they're kind of expensive to do them right?
Yeah.
But do you do them for employees upon hire?
Yeah, we do, there are different levels of background. I mean, we even do, to get a solicitor's permit, you have to go through a background check, but it only costs $15. And all we do is we look for felonies, and that's it. And only certain people can look at the information, and we have.
And if somebody has a felony, they wouldn't be a registered voter.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I thought there was
Yeah,
some,
in a few states, and I think Colorado was one, once you've served your term, you can get back, once you've served your punishment, you can vote again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. I
Cause I
really
mean,
do.
if you've served the punishment for your crime, you should be able
I'm
to-
just worried about our code of ethics and yeah, you can get your right to vote back and I believe in that, but as far as being a public servant, there's certain felonies I don't think
We
should
kind of
qualify people.
spelled that out, and that's what Ash was bringing up with
Yeah,
breaking of fiduciary or whatever.
yeah, fiduciary
I'd
trust.
be interested to hear how what Hillary's take is on this, but I think this is good, I think we should have it in there, and we should definitely be limiting eligibility based off of crimes like that, but I think we also have to keep in mind, is it feasible and realistic that the town could do that? Do we need to put in there that your background check is required and will be at the expense of the candidate?
I was just gonna suggest, if you have to, if the candidate should have to provide their own background check.
I mean, we also talk about opening up candidate pools.
Exactly, yeah.
And I feel like this is cumbersome to candidates.
I would, I mean,
You just turn in your signatures with
I-
a $15 check.
So I think to get on this charter, we got a notarized document that said under penalty of perjury. So if you lie on that document, you perjured yourself, which is a disqualifying event.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
You're still relying on
I don't know if we
other
need to-
people figuring that out though. You're still relying on the people that don't like you digging.
Well, and what's more expensive for the town? Following through in an investigation or running a background check and having caught it in the first place?
Or having a special election because we've caught this person after they've already been,
Right,
and now we're removing them from office and we're past,
well, don't forget, the cost is in time more than the $15,
yeah,
so.
I don't,
I think we should find out what is, like whether we can legally add that to what we wanna do and then figure out, I guess, I don't know.
Are we worried about George
What
Santos?
would be the burden on the town
Whatever his name
if
is.
we wanted to require background checks?
I guess it depends on I don't think it would be terribly burdensome. However, I mean, it's a link, you send them, they have to fill out the information and we get the information back. I guess my only concern is then you're leaving it on the town clerk to say, sorry, you're not qualified to serve.
yeah, if
Because you have a felony.
the clerk saying you're
I
not
mean-
allowed, that could be construed as the town choosing who's allowed to run.
But if
Even
there's
there-
What if you
verifiable
submit-
reasons-
what if you just submit the background check to whoever,
But the town,
It's,
I mean,
background checks are very, it's
Sensitive
it's
information.
very sensitive information, it's not like, I mean, when we do the liquor licensing, I'm allowed to know where it is, but because I'm not the actual staff member that reviews the background information, I'm not supposed to look at it. I've gone through training that if I happen to be helping my staff member and I see it, I know what I'm not but I'm not allowed to go in and look at it. It's very
and by the,
restrictive.
yeah, and by the way, the town clerk can say, you don't have enough registered voters and can reject a petition.
But that's
I know, but,
that is very easy to go, see,
oh, I know,
and whereas with a background check, we can't turn it around and go, here, you
With
have
the
a felony,
public.
you can't do this.
Okay, I get what you mean.
there is
Like,
laws around that, cause even I'm a recruiter. And if I were to reject somebody and something happened to come up on their background, it says, you need to make sure, now you're not turning this person down because of this, this, and this. I feel like running for a government volunteer position should be different, but that's obviously nothing we can address.
Yeah, and I do think, Hillary may know.
Well, and I was just gonna say, that the laws I think are a little bit different when you are elected or running for office, you do sort of give up a piece of that privacy. So maybe that is, Hillary I definitely think that we should put this on the list to talk to Hillary next week. She's here next week? Yeah, next week.
Oh, she's coming in? Cause she scheduled the 2nd and 4th.
Oh, I don't know what day.
Well,
Thursdays.
is this because we're on we have a weird
We have 5
5 this month?
Thursdays
Yeah.
this month.
Second and 4th, but today is the 4th.
Today's the 4th and she's on vacation.
So I think she is planning on coming the 30th.
Okay.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
not going to be here for the 6th, the public hearing.
Yeah, so it was like 2nd and 4th, except this month's special because she's out.
Because of vacation,
She's
school
doing the
vacation.
5th.
So we have the 30th and the 13th. Although the 13th is when we're supposed to be voting. Or are we voting on the 20th?
I think we're voting on the 20th.
Yeah, it should be a clean copy on the 20th that you all vote and
So
sign.
the 13th will be our last,
Revisions.
our final revisions.
Look at
And we need to do
3 weeks,
something about
y'all.
getting Chelsea's signature,
3
so I don't
weeks.
think she's gonna be here on the 13th.
Digital
No,
signatures.
20th.
Or 20th rather.
Yeah.
Is she back on the 20th?
We'll figure that out.
Anyway,
She's not, she is here on the 20th, I think she said she's not on that next week.
Yeah, she won't be here for this
27th
or the 2nd.
or 24th.
Depends whatever we do for the final
Yep.
The
presentation.
2nd's out.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
25th of the
25th to the 27th.
By the way, I did just find something else from the Saturday meeting.
Okay,
Share?
well,
Um,
so I,
can
question,
we
quick,
finish this
hold
one?
on, just for
Yeah.
what we wanna ask Hillary, specifically, are we allowed to do something like enforce a background check on candidates or something like that, or how do we wanna phrase that to her?
Yeah, but it's specific convictions, not
Right, specific
all
things.
convictions, so that's where it gets dicey, and that's, I think that's where we really need guidance.
Okay,
I mean, if we can't do it, we can't do it, but wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we could save the money and time that an investigation would take?
Wouldn't that be something?
Well, no, I think if you find something in the background check, you probably will need to launch an investigation.
no, because if there's a conviction for,
Well, it depends what it is.
well, we say only convictions are
I know,
disqualifying
but
events.
conviction for,
The below
Yeah,
things.
and it's like a complete list,
yeah,
so it's
Okay.
like an inclusive list.
Yeah.
If you have a conviction
for
for
any of these
felony,
things.
that's one of these, you're not allowed to serve.
Okay.
And we were also gonna ask her, you mentioned the breach of public trust or
Yeah,
Fiduciary.
fiduciary trust.
That's the one I thought we were talking about.
yeah, we're trying to figure out how those are defined.
Right.
Yeah, whether it is something that like, is there a conviction that says you have been convicted of breach of fiduciary trust? Cause if it's not, then we have to make sure we have the right wording for that to actually be a disqualifying event and be enforceable.
And it's, candidly, I don't think they're always convictions. Things like
But-
financial planners can get censured for things like that.
Right, so we have to figure out what's an enforceable thing, because if we
Right.
disqualify someone for an accusation, that,
Yeah,
Right, that you can't do.
we'll get a lawsuit probably.
You need something that is a formal action against the person.
kinda like this,
But that's what I'm
in
saying.
good standing was like a phrase we use for the prosecutor and the judge, that's a legal
Yeah, that's a legal term.
for lawyers.
Yeah.
So,
While you're on that topic, can I throw this out? The embezzlement one is embezzlement of public money, so it's okay to embezzle private money?
Yeah, well, they're not, we don't care about what they do in their private lives.
Robin Hood, yeah, steal from the large corporations and all that.
Yeah, that's probably,
That's a good catch. Which section, sorry, what was that?
That's 304.
Two.
that's one of the disqualifiers.
Okay.
is-
Good catch.
Well, we're not gonna, I assume that'll probably be pretty unanimous among the commissioners. But embezzlement of,
Just embezzlement, that's
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, yeah.
no, that's illegal.
but again, I think this probably comes down to the, how do we find out about that?
Yeah,
That again is the same question.
Yeah, so that's the part we need to figure out is, for all of these, how do we find out?
And who's the enforcer?
Well, we've put the enforcement in. It's
But
the,
if it's found out and it comes to light, then the prosecutor enforces it.
cause that's how we have it written in the later section for breach of ethics or any provisions of this charter. It comes to the town prosecutor to enforce. basically to investigate and enforce.
The hard part is figuring it out.
I'm just thinking about what Amy was saying.
Yeah.
Which part?
Like if there's a candidate and it pops up, she's like, we can't just be like, sorry, so who's the person that does that? Do we then hand it to the prosecutor and say, you have to go tell this person that they can't run? And I think the biggest concern was when the public freaks out and they're like, you're just being mean to our candidate.
Yeah.
They're gonna do that regardless, whatever
Because
happens.
that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
town it is, and so Amy can't be like, no, I'm not being mean, because here's all of the bad things that they've done,
Yeah, how do
you
you,
know,
yeah, that's a good question.
they're just gonna get bombarded with hate mail.
PPI.
Just gonna throw this out there, there is a candidate for mayor in Denver who was accused of certain things. And the public will do their own research. And I mean, now granted, he was just accused, and so you guys are trying to maybe, the public, if they think something's out there, they will dig it up there themselves.
Especially in
Some
this
people
town.
live in.
I mean, I think we do have to make sure the
And they
voters
should.
believe that the voters are gonna do what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's legit. Sorry, I didn't mean to get lost in the weeds, I just,
No, it's a good question, and it did lead us to the requesting the specific terminology we need to put in there to make it actually enforceable.
Breach of fiduciary trust is pretty important.
Right, but like if that's not what the conviction is called, like the actual
Yeah,
conviction.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think you have.
Okay, so there were two other quick things. One,
I
I'm
looked up
sorry.
the definition of fiduciary duty, describes the relationship between an attorney and a client or a guardian and a ward.
Well, it's also
So-
like a
fiduciary is
financial
a legal
planner.
term.
But is that, I mean, would that qualify for a trustee or a council member?
Well, fiduciary
I think so.
has to do with,
Money.
like, yeah, you might have a former attorney or a former.
Well, but I guess what I'm, they make the decisions, I don't know, Malcolm, do you help? I mean, I'm curious if the council actually can have fiduciary duty, because they're not actually holding the checkbook and writing the checks.
Well, this
No,
would be-
it's fiduciary in your private life.
Oh, you're saying, okay, sorry.
Yeah, previously,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
like
missed
prior
that.
to running or being elected, if you've ever done one of these things, you're disqualified.
Like if you ran a Ponzi scheme,
Yeah, Bernie's not allowed to run.
Gotcha, I'm sorry, I went totally off the rails on you
But he
guys.
made so much money.
alright, so the next one, I thought we decided, but just wanna verify, that our vacancy provisions handle if a district has no candidates, cause that was one of the things that came up.
Yes.
Yeah, cause I think based on just automatically what will happen and how things are written, if
So if
district
one
has no
wants to
candidates,
be
it
another
triggers it.
special election,
so, yeah,
however number of days after.
Yeah.
Alright.
I had a thought on, kind of related to that, is if no candidates run in a district, that's, I think Justin brought that up.
Alright, that's what,
What I thought, I don't know if it's a good idea, but I'll throw it out there, is that district doesn't get representation. I don't think it's fair, but they didn't run any candidates. I don't know, just an idea.
well, they wouldn't have representation until the special election,
But,
or unless we say that the council can appoint. It's the only
well, kind
other
of,
option.
the point was,
Yeah, I know.
no
but
one
I
runs
think-
in the district. You just had an election, why are you running a special election?
Yeah.
Oh,
I know, it's expensive and.
Well, there's,
And you're not gonna have any candidates.
yeah, they already ran no candidates.
this is never gonna happen though.
I mean, it's likely never going to happen, I would agree with that.
It could though.
I mean, cause I think
we're just-
we threw that out there before and somebody talked about how many people even ran for this and
That's
how many
true.
people ran for,
I mean, yeah, I
this.
think that's valid, and that also kind of leads into compensation. If it's-
word.
If we pay them nothing, I'd say there's a chance we won't get
Yeah.
representatives or candidates.
So,
If we pay them a reasonable amount,
there's
Then-
likely that someone will run, just say, okay, I could use another $400, $500 a month.
well, I think 15,000 registered electors in our
Right.
last election,
Yeah,
so that'd be 5,000 a district. I hope 1 in 5,000 people would be
So-
motivated.
Again, I was just trying to verify that we decided that we would just let it go to the vacancy provision, or
Well-
the other option is an appointment that I
That's
see.
the thing that, yeah, that's the thing that kind of came up here is, like Candace said, is and like if you
I
do
know.
that, you're just gonna have an endless series of special elections until someone finally decides to run.
I guess the elections are cheaper if no one's running, right?
Well, we
I mean,
wouldn't
they
have
still
it.
have to put out the ballots.
If there's nothing on the ballot, they're
Cheaper.
But you gotta prep for it, like
Yeah.
What about the option to going at large for that and then shortening the term to like
To the
2-year
next.
term?
But when do you make that determination? I mean, I don't think,
It would have to be a second special election, but the second election would be at large for
Oh.
that district for a 2-year term.
Or just the highest vote getter who didn't win a seat among all the districts.
no,
that's definitely
because there's
apt
different
for,
voters in different districts.
I would prefer appointment to anything to,
That's probably the best in a special case where
For
they're,
second place mayor, the next,
The only problem with appointment
no, yeah, go on, sorry,
is that,
they're political.
well, that, but also you have to have a pool of candidates to appoint from. You have to have people apply.
Well, how
They
did,
didn't run.
how did Justin get appointed to the board of trustees?
We
He
didn't have an
applied.
election with no people before he
No, but there was a
submitted
vacancy.
an application.
he was vacancy and he applied.
they submitted.
I think it'd
an
be something
application.
similar though,
But you have to have, that's what I'm saying, you have to have candidates apply.
Yeah, the edge case
And if
we're
you have no
talking
candidates
running,
running, why would you get candidates apply for an appointment?
cause it's a lot easier,
that's true.
it's a lot easier.
Well, I mean, are those the people that we really,
It's better than having no representative.
I don't know, I feel like at large for a 2-year term would be a better option.
So just
At
trigger,
least then the people in that district get a little bit of say.
so trigger a special election for an at-large candidate, essentially,
For a 2-year term.
for a 2-year term. Well, this is a big one, so I think
Yeah,
we should
we should wait for everybody.
Yeah.
discuss it, but that's.
The other thing that was brought up was campaign finance records retention.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that one up too.
What did you say?
Campaign finance records retention, period.
So right now, you said what, we keep them for a year?
I would have to look it up. I know that our regular election records we have to keep for, it's like 24 months. It gets us past the next election by a month or something like that. I'd have to look it up. We follow the Colorado municipal, well, no, we actually follow state
Do you
statute.
actually do you delete them and digitally shred them as well after that point of view, or
Yeah,
you do?
we actually, it's all of the ballots from the last election are stored securely at Iron Mountain.
Oh.
We don't keep them here because we'd run out of space, but yeah, we do.
And then they're shredded when they're.
Well, actually, we don't, I mean, we keep, we have, the records we have are the ballots themselves, which are wrapped, they're
Yes,
put in boxes and they're labeled and they're shipped off. And then the other records we have are just the poll book, which just shows whether you voted or not.
What about, sorry, we were talking specifically about the campaign finance disclosures.
Those go in this, I believe, like I said, I can't remember. They go in the same bucket with everything else and we go off and then we
It
ask.
was a 2022 April election.
Yep, and we have a specific destruction date.
And what is that 24 months you said? for that?
Believe so, I can,
Okay,
It's-
so one of the trustees suggested extending the records retention for campaign finance
Right.
stuff. I'd be in favor of as long as that person is in office.
Yeah, I believe that their stuff should be held on to while they're.
And the question, I'm sorry, go on.
Well, I was thinking if they're in office, does that count for the term they were elected to? Or is it until they leave office?
Until they leave office.
Because potentially, we can have
Hmm.
council members on the
Council
indefinitely.
mayor, council, mayor.
the way we've set our
They
term.
don't have to be physical copies necessarily, they could be.
Well, yeah, data's cheap, but it's still.
The other question is are we only talking about the forms that are submitted, or are we talking about receipts and proof that those forms were right?
Well, the only thing that they file are those forms.
Right, so I mean, is the onus, are we talking about the onus being on the town or the onus being on the
town.
official?
I think the suggestion was for town because it's the, they said it was specific to campaigns finance disclosures. So the
Oh,
disclosures are
okay,
what the
it was
candidate
disclosures.
files.
I wrote down records, so I didn't write down disclosure.
Yeah, it was disclosures.
Yeah, I wrote records too, but I would assume it's the formal submission.
Yeah, okay.
That's-
That's how I understood it. I don't, maybe I
That's
just,
what I thought too.
I may have just been.
I mean-
Do you ever audit them?
But they're available if someone requests them.
No, but I mean,
The forms that are filed, yes, we don't,
they're never audited, so people
I would assume
assume.
they have to keep those for tax purposes, I don't know. We don't ask for receipts.
It wasn't tax deductible,
That's not our responsibility
Oh,
to
I know.
ask for receipts.
and that's
We just have to
my,
file the forms and we keep the forms.
and that's my question. Not towards the town, cause
Yeah.
I know what the town.
We wouldn't ask you to verify the accuracy of those forms.
Right, so nobody, so they're
Nobody
never
does.
audited.
Yeah.
Um,
Because the purpose of those is to say, these are who I'm getting money from.
Right.
And then if it's found to be obviously false,
right,
then you're breaking that
perjury?
perjury.
I know,
Um,
cause you do sign
mhm.
those, not notarized, but sign. Alright,
So yeah, really the question was, do we wanna extend that records retention?
What would be the purpose of extending it?
Just because feasibly you could have, right now it's about 24 months. So if you have a candidate who runs, lies on their campaign finance, and it comes out later, after that 2-year period, and they're still sitting in office, there's no verifiable way of saying, here's your form that
Here's
you
the
lied
town
on.
record.
So, in that instance, I think it's vital then that you keep them the entire time that they're in
Right.
office.
yes,
And I think I think it's for the, yeah, the entire time they're in office, and you wait until,
And then it's 2 years after the end of their last term.
yeah,
right,
2 years after they leave office.
I think that's reasonable.
So if they run again within that 2 years for a different office, or for the same office as a
Still be
non-consecutive,
kept.
it'll still be there for auditing purposes.
You know, what is the onus on the town for having to segregate those records then? You can't put it, usually when you
There's
sign
not.
Iron Mountain, you have a destruction date.
So the town would have to maintain some of those, right? Or do you get to decide the destruction date for
Oh, we
things?
decide the destruction date, but
When you
I'm
submit
sorry,
it.
I was busy checking the Secretary of State's website. You guys said keep it how long?
2 years after they leave office.
Yeah, because if they got,
Right.
it would have to be for their current term.
Right, that's
So
what
there'd
I'm
have to
saying.
be a separate bin
Right,
then, because otherwise it just.
but even if there's a separate bin, how do you know, usually when you send something to Iron Mountain, you put a destruct on or on date when you send to Iron Mountain. You wouldn't be able to do that.
We'll have to just have a whole records room made in the new building.
But what would be the purpose of keeping, I mean, they were elected, this was their campaign finance reports for that election. They have to get new ones for the next election, so
Right,
why
so-
would you keep it?
If
I
you
asked
lie.
that too, so they said if they continued in office and then it came out later that they had lied on the first one and they had committed perjury 2 terms ago, we would need documentation of that, but does it have to be the physical document? Can these just be scanned and kept electronically?
It's still a formal document, yes, and we do, cause we put them on the website.
And how long do you keep digital copies? Just, they're sitting on files on some server somewhere?
They're supposed to be destroyed at the same time as the others.
So could we request that digital copies
Be maintained, yeah.
be maintained and the
Well,
physical copies can go with the ballots?
as long as the,
Yeah, that's what that was my next thing.
What's that?
We follow the Colorado Municipal Records Retention Schedule,
Mhm.
I'm looking at it.
and for
We don't
elections.
just make this stuff.
No, we don't.
No, you don't.
No, we try not to.
Check the CRS that has it.
That's right, but yeah. 145 what?
112.
I mean, how
Oh, I was
many,
almost there.
there's probably not that much paper.
It's not gonna be that much paper, it's not gonna be that much digital space.
Like, yeah, I would say it's somewhat cumbersome, but it's important to know this
And I
information.
mean, like, We could, cause we can, the records are only kept for the winners, so even if you have 8 candidates for single office, it's only the one who gets elected that gets kept.
So you keep lying until you get elected. Sorry.
Yeah, and the state statute is that we only have to keep it for a year from the date of filing.
Okay.
And then in the case they were elected, then they're another year after the candidate leaves office.
That's what it says?
So it
Oh,
already
So
kind
it's
of
already
feels
So it's
like
already
we're
there.
talking about.
Our work here is done.
yes.
Thanks, Amy.
All right. Okay.
Give credit to my sidekick over here.
Okay.
Really?
He's faster than I am.
Anybody have anything else from Saturday?
Let's see.
If not, I've got one interesting question I ran across when writing these summaries or the intentions.
I am good with continuing. Anyone else have anything from Saturday?
Worst case, I'll bring it back.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have part of this discussion again next week, so.
Well, and tonight's like boomerang night, so.
Make sure
Yeah.
they're not.
We needed, I think we needed one of these though, right? Yeah, like, especially if we're missing, cause let's face it, I mean, we're only down 2 members, but we're down 2.
3 members.
Oh, we're down 3? Oh god, shoot, my bad.
A third.
Who else is missing?
Brian, Adam, and Chelsea.
Chelsea's not here, okay, yeah, spring break.
I'm not gonna tell her
wow.
you said that.
No, no.
She's watching.
I know, she's watching it now, like,
Sarah.
She heard it, she was watching.
All right.
but anyways, I'm thinking of Adam and Brian and, you know,
So,
I mean,
I hear you. So my question is, what's now Article 6 is emergency powers and town officers. Does anybody remember why we put those two in the same article?
Cause that was the basis of what the charter we use, Eagle Charter.
Yeah,
Put them
but
together.
can we think about that? Because most of the emergency powers are with the mayor and not with town officials, town officers.
Oh, like the phrase town officer?
Well, it's mostly about like Malcolm's role in that chapter, if I remember, in that article, if I remember.
Oh, so
Emergency powers just seemed weird when I was writing the summary.
Yeah, cause
It's
it's
Article
like
4,
401 is emergency powers,
right,
and then 402 on is the town officers.
right.
so
And
pretty
it just
much
seemed
put
like,
that into a,
what was the reason they're together?
Maybe it would, do we have a special section for emergency ordinances?
I mean, that lives under ordinance.
That lived under ordinances. It just seemed weird to me that they were combined.
It almost feels like emergency powers should live, especially since you've got the mayor, should just live in the
But it's
town
both
council
because it talks then about in 401-4,
line of succession.
it's the line of succession. So, I mean, it's just, it would be a shame to have to put it in its own section, but it just seemed like a weird combination to me.
I almost feel
Maybe
like-
just me.
I think that's a good point, and it almost feels like it should live in elective offices.
Or something, yeah. Because that succession is really related
The
to succession of the mayor,
It defines the mayor.
right? So I would prefer that it's in that section more than, excuse me, anything else. But
I don't have a strong enough opinion to be opposed to it. And I think it makes sense to
If
move it.
if it makes sense, I'm cool with it.
Should be easy enough to make it well, what's currently 3, but 314, something like that.
right,
Since this hasn't reordered our stuff yet.
correct.
It is in the same order-ish, isn't it? Like that one comes after that one. Elective offices and then town officers.
Yeah, actually, let me look at
I'm the
what
one
I
who
sent
made
out,
up
because I used
I should
the new order.
remember.
I used the new order of what I sent out. Yeah, I would put it,
With the elective offices, cause it has
Me
more
too,
to do
yes.
with the emergency powers of the elective offices.
yeah, I would put it in 2. Or the new 2.
And then so what is 3?
The new 3
That's
is
elections.
elections.
And then 4 is?
4 is ordinances. 5 initiative referendum recall. 6 is,
Town officers.
would then be town officers.
Okay. I mean, it has a cross-reference to the appropriate section, so
Yes.
I assume that would be fine. Yeah. I don't feel strongly either, but it does make sense for the flow.
Yeah,
Okay, and we can do that. Oh man, changing the numbering and then giving Hillary updates with the old numbering, it's gonna be interesting.
Alright, thank you.
Okay, anything else here?
are we expecting to have everyone next week?
Are there
won't
people
be here.
from,
Oh,
I may,
other-
I may be able to be just late, hoping I'm just gonna be late.
No,
Is
we're
it-
out the door.
are there anybody here who has a school vacation next week?
I think most of
No.
us are in SVVSD, not Boulder Valley, so this week is our spring break.
Alright,
Such an exciting spring break.
do we wanna let people read what I sent out and talk about it next week? Or do we wanna just quickly,
Which thing?
The intention.
the intentions or whatever we wanna call them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
let's
I
take,
did have the time to review, but we can, no.
you know, let's take a quick 5 minutes to read, cause like you said, they're short.
Yeah, they are, it's, the whole thing is
Yeah.
just over one page, I think, maybe.
921 words.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so let's, take a quick 5 minutes to read it through and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Alright. You need me to send it to you again?
No, I just opened.
Mimi, I did find out
And
that
again, if you
whatever
read the
license
emails,
we had
they're
for
private
Office
authorship.
expired and I can't like edit documents through like the town.
On your thing anymore?
It like changed or expired or something, the license expired.
You can email help desk.
Okay.
Because they should be able to fix it. I can't do anything for it.
Okay.
So if you just email directly from yours, they know you have your iPad and they should be able to. Yeah, that's not fun.
Which license expired?
The Office
Office?
license on this, yeah.
Already booted you from 365.
It's essentially like even when I go to like office.com and log in, it doesn't let me like use the
Oh, weird.
They actually gave him Office 11 instead of 365.
You've actually been recalled, sorry.
It can found insufficient for building office.
At the
This
very
is what we're
last
trying
month.
to avoid, the town taking over.
By the way, I did like your words better than mine.
Which one?
Ben's a wordsmith. So
Yeah.
I don't wanna get rid of his
Well, I only had to
preamble.
write one very easy one.
And then Bob saw yours and was like, I'll do all of them.
Hold my beer.
It's interesting reading this because you can tell this written in Bob's voice, like having listened to him for the last,
Right.
3 months. I'm reading this and I'm like, I can hear Bob's voice coming through.
I will leave now, thank you.
You're amazing.
Your
You
work is
are.
valuable.
It is. I think we should have a synopsis or a intentions in front of each article before the article. That way we can keep Ben's preamble.
Yeah, oh no, this has nothing to do with the preamble, so preamble stays as far as I'm concerned. And the question was, are they all at one place in the beginning? which is what
Gotcha,
Phil did,
okay.
Or are they before the article?
Let us finish reading.
Sorry.
Sorry, I already read it, and so rereading it faster.
Gabby's playing Jeopardy music right now in the background. It's just what I imagine.
Should have another one that says the purpose of this charter is to pass the charter. We want people to vote yes.
One reason I did this is, I was at a meeting the other night, in fact, and they said, all right, it takes one person to write and then a group to review and edit and things. Cause it's really hard for a group to write,
Yeah.
and we've done a very good job of that here, it seems to me.
Is everyone done reviewing? 5 minutes? Lisa?
My comment and one of the pieces that I put in mine was pointing out that we're not doing things differently than other Colorado municipalities.
Yeah.
Especially with like the court, for example.
Yeah.
I think almost everything, we're not treading new ground.
I think one of the things that we should put in there is that we wanna ensure the independence of the court as well. Because those were the major changes we made in that section, right? As we ensure the independence from
Well,
town influence.
Yeah, but for all of them, or that's kind of an over encompassing statement, similar to Louisville, they had a few paragraphs and then they said these are what each article is doing. So maybe in that beginning,
Could put that in
something
the
like that,
preamble.
just, yeah, rewrite.
Right.
But just saying we're not
We're not doing anything fancy.
weird things, we're not doing anything that other towns aren't doing, sort of thing. For the most part.
And I whispered to Ben that I like his thing for municipal court more than I like mine, so.
And I mean, I was just reading through this and the way that I go through it is like, it's almost like a table of contents with a short summary.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can frame it as an intention, but I think even just framing it as a table of contents and with the summaries embedded.
Okay.
I would be more in favor of that option,
Well, I meant like summaries embedded in the table of contents.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
yeah.
so
Have it in the front
a
there.
short, here's what this means, if you want. Where I'm a little conflicted on this is when we were talking about it on Saturday, what I took from that when Mayor Brooks was saying, you know, it's not so much the what, but the why. I really felt like he was, you know, on specific things, that the things that we're getting a lot of public comment back on, the things that are really controversial within our town, those are the things that we really need to explain our why.
Yeah.
And I don't think necessarily belong in the charter, but that's where I'd like to discuss the possibility of framing that within some sort of, I hate to call it marketing, because that just sounds skeezy to me, but marketing, and how we present that to the public. And so this is fine, this is great, I love the idea of putting it into a table of contents, but I think that we're missing the key piece of what Mayor Brooks was trying to get across to us. And that is to help explain why we're choosing to go 3 districts, why we're choosing to go even years versus odd years, what, you know, those types of things. And so I don't know that that's necessarily a conversation for tonight, but that was just my take from it. But I think this is great.
And I tried putting some of that in here, maybe not enough. And again, no pride of ownership, it's just something to get us started. I think it needs to be both, again, for thinking 5 years down the road. People are gonna read the
thinking-
charter.
I'm thinking 40 years down the road. This is a historical document.
Hopefully,
The
yeah.
why would get lost, and I do believe the why needs to be in there.
Yes.
So
And
it's
I think-
always attached with the document why
And
the decisions were made the way they were.
yeah, for example, even odd, I did put something in about it, but it may not be sufficient.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. Cause I'm in total agreement with what you're saying, Candace, as far as explaining the why. But I think it needs to be, again, in both.
You want it like enshrined as part of it, because the intention is part of the document.
And it's also
And
for,
I guess what I'm saying is not necessarily that, like, I like this, I think this is great, but I just feel like we need to do more on the why
Yeah,
for like
and
our
that's fine.
marketing
Yeah,
is where I'm at. Does that make sense? It's,
Yeah, no,
I don't know,
no, you're
I agree, because particularly because candidly, you've got a different set of friends and acquaintances than I do.
Yeah.
And we all have different sets. And so it's important that we all work on this to make sure we cover everything, because none of us want this to be voted down.
right, well, because it benefits
So
the town.
we have to do this another year.
And another good purpose, I know, right, it needs to be worth it. Another good reason for the why, besides the historical, this is why we did things, is if circumstances change and they wanna amend something, they can look at it and say, well, they did this because of this, but this isn't a thing anymore, you know?
Wouldn't it be great if we had that from our forefathers?
Yeah.
The why is important, I do.
Well, no,
agree.
I think we're all in agreement.
I think I'm sorry, I'm getting a little lost.
No,
I think one-
not at all, your opinion's always, everybody in here has a great opinion.
I think at least what I was getting from your comments is the amount of detail that we wanna include versus in here versus what we will do with our outreach.
We wanna provide more detail in our outreach.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, this is a very,
Yes,
very fast condensed.
right, like we can just say for the elections, like we chose to go even year elections aligned with national elections to maximize voter turnout and, ensure the voice of as many citizens is heard as possible, and then leave it at that. And then when we're doing it, the actual outreach, we can talk about specifically, we considered at large, we decided against because of this. But in this document, the purpose is just to say, we want everyone involved, as many people involved, and we wanted, the way to do that was doing it here.
So maybe, I'm sorry, go on.
I was gonna bring up the thought of the question for Hillary, because this is a legal document. Everything in the articles it needs to hold up to all sorts of legal challenge. Is this intro document, if we're putting in reasoning, is that going to be,
Subjective
Consider-
versus objective.
yeah, so all of our articles are objective. But what we're putting in there is our subjective thought, thank you,
Yep.
Lisa. And if that's something that we want to put in there, if that's something that lawyers would be upset with, because
and I guess that's kind of where I was going with, I don't know that it needs to necessarily be in the charter, but somewhere, some way, we need to convey why, and we need to have it available for 40, 100, whatever years
Yeah.
down the road.
Well, the town is gonna maintain Lisa's awesome map drawing.
Yeah.
Amy's gonna start etching this in stone on the side of the building.
we shall.
It's the new Erie seal.
Sorry, what were
That's
you gonna say?
legit, I mean, the subjective versus objective.
Well, I still think it's important for down the road.
That's kind
I do too, but I wanna get a lawyer's take on it.
That's kind of why I was thinking if we frame it as a table of contents, then it's not, remember, like it's seen as kind of the title and we have an element later on that says the titles of the sections are not meant to limit the powers of what's defined in the sections. So having it as like a table of contents with like a little summary for each section.
Yeah.
I would feel, I'm not a lawyer, but I would feel that would fall under the same thing. It's like, it's a descriptive but not all encompassing.
But you have to read the actual article to get.
Yes, to get the
Yes.
legality,
Yeah.
like to get the legally enforceable.
That's, yeah, and I think that's why I liked the table of contents idea.
Yeah, and that's fine with me, and that's closer with Louis, I mean, not closer, that is what Louisville did.
And we may need to, limit some of these,
Yeah.
we may
My
go- some of them
suggestion-
may be a little bit long for a table of contents, but.
Yeah.
My suggestion, well, that's when I got into the rationale. My suggestion is we each look at this and make edits to bring back next week.
Mhm.
Rather than trying to go through it all line by line now.
And try
Fine,
to-
Bob.
Try to send them out to everyone. So what I do for emails that I send to everyone, you BCC the home rule.
Yes,
List?
I shouldn't have responded.
Yeah.
But
So
just
but
did,
if you leave it, if you just BCC and then you write on the top line
Yes.
that you BCC the
that's
home
what I
rule,
usually
we
do,
know that everyone has gotten it.
that's what I usually do, and that way you
You too,
can
then.
accidentally do what I did, which is respond to all.
Yeah.
Not accidentally, I gave it some thought.
Okay.
I didn't think it was a discussion, which is why I thought it was okay.
I think it's just murky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your emails, and if you would have just started a new email and sent it
I know,
out to us,
I
it
know.
would have been fine.
I know.
But I was like, oh gosh, I don't think.
Is this something we want to have, we can have it as an attachment in the next agenda, so it's public.
Yes,
What
I
we're
think that's a good idea.
Which one?
The thing I sent out with
The
intent,
This particular
intentions.
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
I think it is good to have in the public record.
Even, yeah, it's,
We can actually even have Gabby put it on the website. If you'd like, for the notes from this week's.
just as like a link to the
Yeah,
document.
that would
I
work.
think that'd be nice for transparency, just
Yes.
because we were talking about it and
Yeah.
I agree.
didn't have it.
And sorry, yeah, we did kind of throw it on there last minute. So next week is gonna be our last one before the public comment or the public hearing, right? So we need to have as much of it as possible hashed out.
It should be almost like a final draft,
Yeah.
the draft, not
But
final.
then that means we'll have, after that, we'll have one more meeting where we can make changes.
Should we have an extra meeting? I hate suggesting that, but I mean, if we feel like we need one.
I think we can, we'll see what comes out of the public hearing, I think.
Yeah,
'Cause if
I might
everyone-
not be able to make the April 13th meeting,
Okay.
and I feel like that's kind of an important one, huh?
I think it'll depend on what feedback, if everyone comes to April 6th and says, this is the best thing ever, you guys should just
I'm sure
sign
that'll-
this.
I'm out of the country, sorry,
What,
the sixth. Second through the 9th, I'm out.
I mean, okay, so
I'll just try to move some stuff around and see if I can be here.
if you can do that, yeah, let me know, cause otherwise we can try to hash out like, or carve out part of the 20th meeting to do like final edits with everyone.
I hate to do that. I'll try to move some stuff around. I'll make some calls tomorrow so I can get some
Aren't
done.
we signing a document on the 20th?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll do what I can.
Hillary is doing live updates.
I gotta call some
if we change
reservations and
Yeah,
change
that's the
everything.
thing, yeah, if it's possible.
And I'm assuming on the 20th we'll have access to a printer.
I would, but on the 20th, I would probably bring it printed. If she makes changes, then I can print it and bring it
Yeah.
back down.
Because we were just talking about making potential last minute edits.
On the 20th, yeah, we can. I
Is
can-
it
I
just
can-
us that signs it?
All 9 of us.
Well, none of us, but not like Hillary or anything?
It's all on our heads. Okay, I think we are good, at least we had some good random, like you said, boomeranging discussions.
Popcorn.
It's like
It's
beer
my
pong.
favorite. I'm like full on ADHD, so conversations like that are I'm so.
Can we discuss
Yes, we have the last,
whether you wanna present this to the board
25th to the 27th.
25th to the 27th? Yes.
So 25th would be their Tuesday meeting, 27th is our Thursday meeting. Anyone feel, sorry, I know Chelsea won't be here Friday.
She will, yeah.
I was talking to Amy before, the advantage of the 25th is it's much easier on town staff because there are already people set up for doing the board meeting.
Oh, because if we do it on a Thursday, it's the trustees meeting,
Mm-hmm.
so.
So they
So
have
I
to
don't think I can make the 25th, I don't think I'll have childcare.
That's the Tuesday day, right?
Right.
That we're talking about, yeah, I looked into that too and I don't think I can, but I can probably make it work.
Well, there, it
If
will be
it's better
like
for everybody else.
remote participation.
Do we all have to be there?
No,
No,
Then do it when it works for everybody else.
we just send Ash up there.
he's really the only one that has to be there.
I don't think, I mean, I think.
I'll give you mine.
I'll show it.
I'll show you dance moves.
Just someone at the, I think the charter is presented.
We can meet in my garage
Commission
ahead
is
of time.
presented.
Huh?
Doesn't matter who.
Yeah, I think the idea is that you have a presentation, you know, some sort of PowerPoint outlining your whys.
Yeah.
And then you, like, I'm guessing they physically walk up there and say, here,
Yes.
here you go.
And then put the document that we all signed the previous week.
Actually, it will also, there would also be a electronic version in the packet. But the formal, the official,
Yeah, there's, I guess, yeah, there's no reason to wait another 2 days. Cause you, like you said, there's nothing on the agenda for the 20th at the moment, right? Or that was the
Nothing,
second
but
date.
it's,
For the 27th, for the 25th.
the 20, yeah, for the 25th, there is items, but yours, I mean, Malcolm and I added it to the advanced agenda and it's 30 minutes and it still keeps the meeting at less than their
Okay.
long ones. It's like around 3 hours.
Do we get to go first?
I think it's go first, yeah.
Would the
no, the important question is,
What time would it be on the 20th?
I think they're at 6:30, right?
It'd start at 6:30, if we went first, it'd probably be 6:45-ish, I think that's when I
Yeah.
see.
because there's some public
Consent
comment.
Well, there's
agenda.
so much on the
Usually
agenda.
don't wait.
Do we get to pop a champagne cork after you hand it to them?
In the
We'll do it outside in the parking lot, yeah.
I'll have my kids with me, but it'll be fine.
I'll bring my kids
As long as.
I'll be in the audience, I can help you with your kids.
Now, I was thinking we could, if we need it, if it's just gonna be a short period of time, I'm willing to hire a babysitter if we could get this room.
I have access to the church across the street,
Yeah.
which has like play stuff in it. I can stick my daughter in there with all y'all's kids.
See, my only thing is, my son is on one of the teams that, his robotics team's going to the world championship in Texas.
That's pretty important.
And that's, yeah, I don't think I'm going, but that's gonna, my husband's gonna go and then, yeah.
What's the verdict? Would we,
Would you go first?
yeah, would we, or is it?
We can
I think it's pretty
We
important.
have to wait till after a proclamation, but those are only 5 minutes long.
Okay.
Malcolm has the power.
Go as early as possible, as reasonable.
It would probably be.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
it's
then
the
let,
10 p.m.
6:45.
presentation,
huh?
the 10 p.m. presentation.
No.
1 a.m.
So yeah.
Dance moves get really good at 1 a.m.
That'd be really good for the childcare.
Yeah, let's do the 25th then. I think that makes it
Yeah, 100%.
as streamlined as possible.
Less burdensome for
Everyone.
That's for
the trustees and the staff.
And we finally got a Thursday night back.
Yeah.
The end is in sight.
Huh?
The end is in sight.
Yes, it is.
It's kind of sad.
And we're doing 30 minutes, are we?
I am gonna start putting together the presentation this week and I can add that to the agenda for next week.
Yeah.
Cause I think I'll pull from this summary, cause I have to work on that, or the table of contents section anyways, it'll pull from that a lot.
Good.
So,
Is there any way that we can put it like up there so we can all review it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great.
yeah, well, I'll have it sent out, or I'll have the first draft ready before the meeting notice has to go out for next week, so you can attach it to the agenda.
You're awesome, Ash.
Yes, you are.
That's what the little chair means, right?
Yeah, I feel like
Glad
we
it's
should have
in front of your name
added,
and not
he
mine.
needs a new name tag.
Do we have chair on that side or no?
I was pretending to write it. Okay, I think we're good as far as discussions for today then. I'm trying to see what decision, we didn't make any decisions really. We just had a few, well, okay, so for Hillary, we wanted on 304.2, the current 304.2, we wanted to strike the of public funds from the embezzlement phrasing. If you've been convicted of any sort of embezzlement, you shouldn't be in office. And then the other question we have
That's
is.
304, the second three or the first 304?
Oh jeez, yeah.
Oh, wait, that one's not an issue, that was a different one.
Yeah. And then, let's we were considering moving like the 401, the emergency powers section up to the end of the elective offices section. Just because it seems more relevant with the cross-reference to the town officers for line of succession. But then that current Article 4 would be renamed town officers.
Thank you.
And then the other question for Hillary was the legality of the subjective intention section. Are we allowed to have something like that is just meant to kind of formalize our thoughts while we were doing all of this and putting it together? And then, yeah, I guess just the on that vein, the question on like, what are the specific legal phrasings we'd have to put if we wanted to say like a conviction of breach of fiduciary trust was a disqualifying factor. And then just, yeah, what are we supposed to do as far as like background checks, if we can enforce those, or if they're more just like leave it up to private citizens and investigations to uncover things like that. And I think that's it.
So for next week, I think it's important that I don't know if we necessarily want this on the agenda, but at least a list for you to keep. We have to make decisions and finalize the transition process. We have to figure out what we're doing with the other two trustees. We have to figure out what we're doing with vacancies.
Mhm.
And then if there's no, I said vacancies, but I mean if there's no candidates that run for a district. So those are huge. And pay, we have to figure out compensation. So those things, we may need to just do those first.
Yeah.
Because they're so big, and that's gonna probably move public comment one way or another, or the public hearing the following week. So I think we just need to get those ironed out first, and then we can.
No, that's a good call. Can you send the things you just mentioned in an email to
You
everyone?
didn't write them down, I didn't write them down either.
I was gonna go through my list actually.
I take back my comments about you being wonderful.
Look what you made of it.
Okay, what did I just say, guys? Everybody help.
We can
There
play back
was
the recording later.
Transition.
transition, compensation,
Vacancies.
vacancy, or no one running,
Yeah, no candidates.
no candidate for an office position. And then, yeah, I'm sure I have a couple of others that I'll send out as well, just what I was tracking that we haven't quite finalized, but I'll have to do that later.
Compensation / bennies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm opposed to. I love the idea of childcare, I really do, but I also
And you're not here.
really love the charter. So I think we
No, I
increase
agree.
it, yeah, it
I
just,
totally agree. I think it's one or the other. You either increase compensation or you increase benefit packages, and I think compensation makes more sense. And then you do with that what you want. Pay a babysitter. Or get a dog.
A sheepdog.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that's it. Anyone have anything last minute before we?
Do people have one last chance to answer the doodle poll?
I did,
I know,
Oh, darn it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude, my April is packed.
it's looking like it's gonna be one date, but doodle is really slow, so I'm having trouble getting what that date is.
Like, I'm trying to remember
Most
to
people can
send
do
my
it.
friend's apology text for ghosting and then not being around.
My friend's mom died last night and I
Ooh.
didn't text until like right before I came here. That's how happy I am, so you're fine.
Okay. Oh, I'm so tired
Alright,
of
I
saying
think,
that.
yeah, we're all adjourned then for today.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Bob, and I will definitely look over your intentions,
That's all right.
our intentions.
It's not meant to be mine, it's meant to be
Bob's
ours.
intentions, that's what we'll talk
Oh,
about.
no, oh, you want me to write them down?
Only if we write Ben's preamble.
In case
Right.
it looks something
It's already got it
Oh,
on the
okay, great.
website.
Ben's pre, Bob's intentions.
No, no, no.